Hey everybody, it's Chef Vedam here. How are y'all this evening? Well, I wanted to follow back up with you regarding last week's post or last week's live Facebook feed, and wanted to just continue this dialogue that is happening. So I'm going to give you guys a few minutes to get on board, and once everybody is on board, then I will get started. And like I said, I wanted to just basically follow up with last week's Facebook Live. So I'll give you guys just a few more minutes and we'll start in just a bit. So I guess just like I did last week, what did y'all guys do for dinner tonight? We actually did leftovers. I made some fried chicken and I did some okra and cream corn and mashed potatoes last night, and had plenty of that sort of stuff left over, and just made some extra lima beans, and we were good to go. So dinner was kind of fabulous once again. So let's see here. Hey Karen, glad to see you, honey. So I just wanted to follow up, like I said, from last week. I'm going to be doing these Facebook Live videos from time to time. I may do them more often than what I actually realize, but we'll see how they go. So, as y'all know, I have been focused on living gluten-free for, I guess, since 2012, something like that. I don't remember if it was 11, 12, or 13. It's all kind of a blur now. But anyway, ever since I have gone gluten-free and have started cooking gluten-free, sharing all of this, it has really just opened up a whole different arena for me. Hey Lisa, how you doing, girl? It was good to see you. Hey Cheryl, oh my God, Cheryl, I haven't seen you. I hope we can see each other this summer during our high school reunion. For those of you that, just give you a little bit of back history, my friend Cheryl, who just joined in, she was one of my models in the very first hair show I ever joined, and we won first place. So thanks, Cheryl. Anyway, hey Lisa, love you too, girl. So anyway, let's continue on with what I was talking about last week. Like I said, I'm going to be doing these Facebook Live videos, helping to spread some insight, some awareness about gluten-free living, cooking gluten-free, just the circumstances of what it really truly means to be gluten-free. Hey Carol, hey honey, good to see you, girl. I wish you were sitting here right next to me like in the old days, back in the old model room. But anyway, so back to gluten-free living. Last week I shared just some basic information about gluten-free living, what it really means, what it does to a person's system, etc., etc. So I want to just recap on some of that sort of stuff from last week. What is gluten? What does it really mean to be gluten-free? Well, gluten is an amino acid that is found in wheat, rye, or barley. And that amino acid when digested, it can destroy the villi inside the small intestines. Now, the villi are these hair-like appendages inside of the person's small intestines, and when you eat food, you digest the food, it processes all the way through you, and as it hits into the small intestines, the villi is what allows the body to assimilate nutrition. So the food goes in, the villi absorbs the nutrition from the food that you eat, and then it is sent into the bloodstream, giving the body nourishment. Well, someone who has either celiac disease, non-celiac gluten sensitivity, wheat allergy, etc., it destroys that villi, and very little, if any, I don't really know the exact ratio. Don't try to quote me on this because I'm not going to give you any statistics, but I do know that the villi, the destruction of the villi does not allow the body to assimilate nutrition. Therefore, all kinds of other things can occur. Now, the only cure at this point is living gluten-free or eating only a gluten-free diet. Now, living gluten-free. There are so many hidden forms of gluten. I'll give you just one example tonight. I can't lick an envelope any longer. You know, let's say I'm paying bills and I'm doing it the old-fashioned way. I'm writing a check. I'm addressing the envelope. I stick the check in the envelope. I lick the envelope, seal it, put it in the mail. That can't happen with me anymore. That little bit of glue has enough gluten in it that it could send me to bed for 3 or 4 days. So, it is truly not only eating gluten-free, but it is living a gluten-free life. Now, that is the only cure at this point in time. If this goes on untreated, there is a 50% chance of a person evolving or another autoimmune disease taking effect with that person. I'll give you some examples. The risk of cancer. If a person goes or continues to not eat and live a gluten-free life, the risk of cancer goes up 200 to 300%. Another example, miscarriage or problems with pregnancy goes up 800 to 900%. Now, how much, hey Danny, good to see you, man. How much wheat or how much gluten is that breaking point that can make someone sick? How much gluten is dependent upon how much damage has already taken place, and that person's basic health, what their basic health example is, and I can't think of the exact word, but dependent upon what they are starting at, what their starting point is, the amount of gluten is dependent upon each person. However, they do know that 1/8 of a teaspoon of wheat or wheat flour is enough to make someone sick. Another example, if you were to take one slice of bread and cut it equally into 145 equal pieces. I mean, that is a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of bread. that person takes that bread, that is enough to make someone sick. So that's all the recap that I'm going to go over as far as last week's information. And what I'm going to do tonight is I want to talk about the difference between homemade gluten-free and pre-processed or pre-packaged gluten-free foods. And if there are any questions, I urge you to type those questions out in the comment box, because I am more than willing to answer those questions this evening. And if I don't know, I will be happy to tell you that I don't know and help you and help me find out what that answer is. So feel free to ask any question that you want, and we'll go from there. But I've got plenty I want to talk about even before we get started with those questions. So many times after someone is diagnosed, they walk through the grocery store in complete just confusion. They don't know where to turn. The doctor that they have visited may have been able to give them some information. But usually when a person finds out their diagnosis, they're first of all just kind of glazed over. They don't really know what that means. Is the doctor on some tangent? Are they about to embark upon some fad? But in many cases, that person that has just been diagnosed, they have been, they could be like myself, they could have been sick for years. They could have had many undiagnosed or unable to explain happenings that have occurred inside themselves. And so they get this diagnosis of, it could be celiac disease if they've had the biopsy. They could have had the blood test that could have said that there is a probability or a propensity for celiac or non-celiac gluten sensitivity, or they could have just been told to go on a gluten-free diet and see if that would help. So they go into the grocery store and they automatically know they can't do bread. There's a whole aisle. There's a whole bakery section that they just simply have to walk past unless they're in a specialty grocery store that happens to give them this sort of, if it doesn't meet those needs. They walk past the bread, and I know for myself, I was a bread eater, so walking past the bread and just being told that I could not have those things, that just, it bothered me right off from the get-go. Well, then I started walking through the grocery store, and I really became aware of those little tabs below the price of the product that said gluten-free. Or if you're looking at the tab, it may have a little GF next to it for gluten-free. So you start noticing all of these products out now that are being positioned in a place that is known to be gluten-free food. There's cookies, pastas, etc., etc. You also go into areas like the soups and the salad dressings and the condiments, and you're starting to notice these random tags that are saying gluten-free or GF. And you start looking at them, and then you start also picking up other products that aren't listed as gluten-free. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. But you flip over to the ingredients, and you're looking at the ingredients, and you're seeing words. Some of them you can completely understand, and other words that make absolutely no sense simply because they're just chemicals upon chemicals upon chemicals. And then it will say, this product may contain wheat, soy, dairy, nuts, whatever. And, you're just flying by the seat of your pants. Well, as I said last week, things begin to look rather bleak. I know for myself, I bought a loaf of gluten-free bread, I bought some pasta, and I bought some bread mix. Those were the first three things that I brought and took home with me. And I thought I would just figure the rest out. Excuse me. Well, the gluten-free bread, I can't tell you what it actually tasted like. The closest analogy that I can give you is that gluten-free bread, and I don't even remember how much I paid for it. Hey, Darlene, good to see you, girl. I can't tell you how much I even paid for it. I don't even remember. But it was probably $6.50 to $7.50 for a bag of pre-made gluten-free bread. Hey Judith, good to see you, my little friend who we shared recipes back and forth with. So here I am with this loaf of bread, and I bit into it, and it was a cross between the most stale piece of cardboard, and if you were to take that and blend it with communion wafers. That is the closest way that I can describe this bread that they were passing off as fresh bread. Hey Henry, good to see you, man. So it was the worst stuff you could have ever imagined. This bread was wretched. I threw it in the trash immediately and just thought, okay, we've got to figure something out from here. So, there are those processed, pre-packaged, gluten-free foods that are serving a purpose. Yes, there is a purpose. There's a supply and demand that is taking place regarding them. But there is a lot to be desired with many of them. Now, I am not here to bash pre-packaged, pre-processed foods. What I am here to do is help shed some light, help shed some awareness, help share some insight regarding that. When you start breaking down what has already occurred inside the body prior to this diagnosis, prior to the decision to go gluten-free. Now, as I said last week, there has already been, for many, lots of different types of damage that has occurred inside the body because they have been digesting gluten, wheat, rye, or barley, the amino acid found in wheat, rye, or barley. There's damage that has occurred that some of that damage can be corrected if caught in time. However, if that damage has not been caught in time, other autoimmune diseases can occur. The gluten-free or the celiac diagnosis is already a autoimmune disease. So there's damage that has occurred inside that person from the top of their head to the tip of their toes. It affects muscular, it affects skeletal, it affects neurological, it can affect childbirth, it can affect many different things. So there's damage that has already occurred besides what has occurred inside the intestines. So now it comes time to begin the process of healing. Begin the process of correcting what has already occurred. From my perspective, to begin to start healing that situation that has already occurred, pre-processed, pre-packaged gluten-free foods in many cases is not the answer. Yes, the answer is a gluten-free diet. Yes, the answer is living a gluten-free life. However, generally speaking, not only gluten-free, but generally speaking, pre-packaged, pre-processed foods is not the answer for healing. It is not the answer for recovery. You can eat gluten-free simply by sticking with the meats, the vegetables, the fruit, that area of the grocery store. But there's a lot more to the grocery store than just that area. But that is where your health is going to really begin to start taking shape inside yourself. Now, I really want to reiterate here before I go any further. If you happen to have any questions tonight, please feel free to type any questions down in the comment box, and I will do my best to answer them from this point on. So, as I was saying, I understand eating the traditional or buying the traditional items that we buy in the grocery store for convenience, such as bread, crackers, etc. However, in my opinion, society is starting to lean too far into what they perceive as being the easy way out. Just because that product says it is gluten-free, it is not necessarily going to help heal and bring your health back into an optimal state of being. You know, I believe that society in general is starting to take the easy way out in a lot of situations, not just with eating, but I am strictly focused on the aspect of eating and cooking for yourself compared to eating prepackaged, pre-processed, gluten-free foods. Hey, Lisa. What is she saying? I'm guilty. I having a feeling I inspired this live feed. No, darling, you didn't inspire it. You know, life in general has shown me that people enjoy taking the fast, easy way out. And that is not necessarily the long-standing route out. I'm a firm believer. You may want to save time and money by buying these products, time and or money. But from my perspective, you're going to pay if you, one way or the other, you are either going to pay now or you are going to pay later going back and forth to the doctor. I can't say it any more clearer than that. This society is killing itself by taking that easy way out. Pre-processed foods. I call it frankenfood. Frankenfood is not the answer for health and healing. Frankenfood, pre-processed, pre-packaged food. Yes, Darlene, fresh is best, so when you do it yourself, you know what's in it. You got that right, sister. Amen to that one. you know what you have. But when you're buying pre-processed, pre-packaged foods, whether it is gluten-free or not, let's discuss some of those things regarding pre-packaged, pre-processed foods across the board. They are known to be higher in sugar and higher in corn syrup, high fructose corn syrup. That alone has a devastating effect on one's metabolism. Not to mention, sugar can have the tendency to help yeast begin to grow inside a person's stomach. When someone already is having digestive tract issues because of ingestion of wheat, rye, or barley, when they have a gluten sensitivity, the last thing they need, especially while they are healing, is an overproduction of yeast inside the intestines. So that's one thing with prepackaged, pre-processed food. It is higher in sugar and high fructose corn syrup. Another one, artificial preservatives, colorants, flavorings, and texturants. It's very high in carbohydrates. And are you aware that there is something called pre-processed, pre-packaged food is what is known as hyper-rewarding food? What does hyper-rewarding food mean? It means that they have added in the production of it chemicals, additives, preservatives that actually, when processed, it affects the brain, and the brain perceives it as a reward, and the brain then sends messages further back down into the body to begin craving it even more. There's a war on drug. There's a war on everything that is out there in the streets. But what about the drugs, the hormones, the preservatives, all of the chemicals that they are putting into this pre-processed, pre-packaged foods that is making you enjoy it more than it actually tastes good, and it begins a process of craving it down the road. That sounds like, there's many drug dealers out there that want to do the same sort of thing. They want you to enjoy their product. They want you to come back and purchase from them again. Is this not the same bull that is occurring inside our grocery stores? The companies, the powers that be, they allow it. They see it. They know what is occurring inside of this food. But yet, they tell you that it is okay. I am a firm believer in flipping that ingredient, that product over and looking at the ingredients. And if you can't pronounce it, if you cannot pronounce those ingredients, then the probability of you eating that and it being good for you on a long-term, long consecutive basis, is it really good for you? Again, let me state that one more time. If you flip that product over and you read the ingredient list, and if you cannot pronounce that ingredient, the benefit that product is going to do for you long term, is it really worth it? You may be saving money now, but are you going to be paying more later down the road by visiting your doctor? Hey Dayla, good to see you, my girl, my little sister in all of this. I love you, honey. Can't wait to see you in a couple weeks. So we have established that pre-processed, pre-packaged foods is naturally higher in sugar. There's more preservatives, there's more colorants, there's more flavorings, there's more texturants. I mean, they've destroyed this product and they're adding more stuff to it to bring it back to life, so to speak. And while I'm on that subject, are you aware that in many pre-processed, pre-packaged foods, that they are naturally lower in nutrition? And they're lower in nutrition because they have been processed. They have been put through the ringer. And in many situations, the manufacturers actually have to add artificial vitamins and minerals back into that food to bring it back up to standards. Does that make any sense to any of you? Does it? I don't get it. Pre-packaged, pre processed foods are lower in fiber. They're lower in fiber, and they are higher in trans fats. It gets to a point that convenience is not what is needed. Convenience isn't what is needed for anybody. You can be the top bill of health and eating pre-processed, pre-packaged foods on a long-term, consecutive day after day after day is not going to be good for you. Yeah, I love that, Darlene, unless you eat the box. You just as well eat the box. You just as well eat the box. Stick with the fruits, the vegetables. Go to the butcher area. Stick on the outside of the grocery store. Spend less time in the middle of the grocery store. Now, I don't want you guys to think for a minute that I don't buy stuff. You know, I buy gluten-free crackers. I buy gluten-free pasta. I buy condiments that I have to flip over and look at the ingredients. But it is about doing things in moderation. Yeah, Darlene, I'm good on the outside too, but did you know, Darlene says ice cream is on one side and wine is on the other. Atta girl. But do you know that I have to look at ice cream? Yeah. I have to look at ice cream. I have to flip over and look at the ingredients when I am buying ice cream, because in many ice creams they are not gluten-free. Now, you know, when I was growing up, when we made ice cream out on the farm, there was cream, there was egg, there was flavoring, and it was spun in a bucket of ice. You know, we didn't think about having any wheat in our ice cream. But I was at someone's house, and they were serving desserts. There was a bunch of cakes. There was a bunch of pies. I couldn't have any of it. So they said, "We've got the fix for you, Vedam. We've got ice cream." "Well, what flavor do you have?" I asked. They said, "Well, I think we've got 3. Let me go look." So they pulled all 3 ice creams out of the freezer. There was only 1 out of 3 that did not have wheat in it. This is a prime example of what I am talking about these manufacturers bastardizing our food supply. You do not have to allow this to occur. You can, Darlene, there was 2 vanillas. One did not have gluten. The other did. And the chocolate also had gluten in it. So, they use it as a thickener. They use it to add weight. They use it to bring up the bill. You know what I've got to say about that? Bull. Bull And you know what word follows that? I'm trying to do better, so I'm not going to use it. I'm not going to say it, but bull. We are being screwed by these manufacturers. Now back to the pre-processed, pre-packaged foods. I'm not saying you can't have them. I'm saying you're better off without them. I am saying that use them in moderation. Spend the time. And it doesn't take that much time to plan a few menus for yourself. Cook enough to have a little bit of a leftover. If you don't like leftovers, turn that dish into something else. Plan accordingly. Eat natural. Eat what is grown in your own garden or grown in a garden that you know about or a farmer's market that you know about. Because in many cases, even those fruits, those vegetables, those meats, they too can be bastardized. And you've got to just pay attention. Stick with the natural aspects of what nourishes that body, what gives that body strength. A friend of mine was telling me about what was recommended from a dietitian regarding her mother's diabetes. And they said picture a plate. Divide that plate in half and then divide that half into a section and divide this other into a section as well. Fill one with protein, fill one with vegetables, the other with fruit, or even one whole side with vegetables, one section being protein, one section being carbohydrates. Think about this on an ongoing basis, day in, day out. Think about the nourishment. You know, my rule of thumb, and you guys, you can tell by my recipes that I do not cheat myself on what I want to eat. Yes, we eat fried foods. Yes, we eat desserts. Yes, we eat carbohydrates. Yes, I even eat pre-processed, pre-packaged foods. But that is not the general. We eat what we want to eat, but we do it in moderation. I rarely will eat carbohydrates and a dessert on the same night unless it is a special occasion. You either get one or you get the other. So think about these sorts of things with gluten-free living and healing yourself with gluten-free living. Your body is already in trouble. Your body is already in distress. And now it is time to begin the process of moving back into health. Pre-processed, pre-packaged foods is not the answer. Pre-processed, pre-packaged foods is only going to do one thing long term. Eating pre-processed, pre-packaged foods long term is only going to guarantee you another trip to the doctor down the road. Eat in moderation. If you don't have the time, if you don't have the know-how, or if you don't have the desire to begin to cook for yourself, find a personal chef. I am not the only one out there. Since I began this process, I have met, I have enjoyed, there is a huge amount of us out there that are more than willing to help you with your diet. They all may not be a gluten-free personal chef like myself, but there are personal chefs that are more than willing to help you in this journey. And, you know, if I'm in your area, I want to be able to help you. If you happen to be seeing this and I'm not in your area, simply go to www.hireachef.com. That is my commercial for this whole, for this whole evening. Go to hireachef.com. Find yourself a personal chef that can help you on your dietary needs. If that personal chef is not as knowledgeable as I am about gluten-free living, I can guarantee you, well, I can't guarantee you 100%, but I can guarantee you that a large percentage of us, those personal chefs like myself, they are more than willing to find out what it takes to cook for you and help bring you back to health. You do not have to subject yourself to pre-processed, pre-packaged foods. There is so many other options that are out there for you besides living inside the middle of that grocery store. Yes, I urge you to shop outside the perimeter of the grocery store and visit inside the middle. But do not spend the emphasis of your time in the middle of that grocery store. Flip that product over. See if it meets your dietary needs. See if it contains gluten. See if it contains wheat. Whatever your food allergy may be, see if it contains it. And also, while you're looking to see if it contains those things, take a look at the ingredient list. And if you cannot pronounce that word, or if you don't know what that ingredient is or what that ingredient means, the probability that it is good for you long term is not the answer. There's a lot of information on my website regarding celiac, regarding non-celiac gluten sensitivity or a wheat allergy. It's under the tab that is entitled Learn. There is tons of information pertaining to celiac disease, non-celiac gluten sensitivity. There are websites, there are apps, there's lots of information that can benefit you on that Learn page. But while you are also glancing over that website, I want you to check into the Personal Chef section. Under the Personal Chef section, the Personal Chef section of that website, it explains to you exactly how a personal chef works. A personal chef discusses with you your needs, your desires, your likes, your don't likes, your idiosyncrasies, all of those sorts of things. And once that has been determined, that personal chef creates menus specifically designed for you. Once those menus have been approved, that personal chef comes to your home and cooks those meals for you and prepares them for your refrigerator or your freezer. That personal chef is pouring love into that food because they love what they do. They are doing it not only for themselves, but they're doing it for you. They want to help you. So if you're not one of those people that are inclined to cook for yourself, if you don't have a husband, wife, partner, friend, whatever, who wants to cook for you, you don't have to eat that frankenfood that is inside the middle of that grocery store. You deserve better than that. You've got to start believing that and honoring that, owning that, and start putting food inside your body that is not only going to sustain you, it is going to nourish you, it is going to help you thrive. Food is not something that is only enjoyable. And I love food. Food, yes, it is supposed to be enjoyed. It is supposed to just make you feel good inside and out. But it is also supposed to nourish you, give you the strength, give you what it takes to move through life. Life is chaotic, life is crazy, life is full, life is fun. But food is supposed to sustain you to be able to embrace that aspect of life. So I'm going to sign off for tonight, and I'm going to most likely be back next Monday evening. Now, what I'm planning on doing next Monday is I am going to talk about the different types of gluten-free flours. I'm going to talk about what one type of flour does in relation to another type of flour, how you can blend those together to achieve what you need to do. And with that, I'm going to show you how to make your own gluten-free flour and what that can mean in the creation of your own bread, inside your own cakes, inside your enjoyment of life. Because I want you to not only lick it up, I want you to lap it up. I want you to think life is delicious and life is fabulous. So for now, I'm going to sign off, and I want you to realize that life can be gluten-free and fabulous. Bye, baby. Take care. Oops.